The next level is a group of theater geeks playing Dungeons and Dragons. Here is your dungeon master, Rob Card.
Hello and welcome to The Next Level. This is the recap for episode 8 that we have called The Clipped Card Kidnapping. The episode begins with Jacob finishing his afternoon with his sister Lori, then going to speak with Mint about the information he's acquired about his mentor that he's just found out about. Mint tells him about some of the other artificers she knew, as well as his mentor. There were 9 master artificers, all gnomes in total, and they have a bit of a discussion around that. Jacob tells her that he's now sort of confiding in his sister as well, so there's sort of another one on his side who knows about his memory loss. Jacob purchases a very nice room at the Napping Gnome, then goes to check on his cart and adds a few items for sale, checking in with the Colonel, as he calls his valet there. Mint and Tor go shopping, finding some weapons and armor at the Everything Emporium, and then heading over to the Hand of the Mystic, where the proprietor, a tiefling woman, offers them a reading from the Deck of Souls. This proves to be rather accurate and surprising in how it turned out. I wasn't sure how that would work, and I think it came across very well. And Mint was a bit of a skeptic as well, but they stuck around and bought a few more items. The Rock of Healing, as well as a regular healing potion from the proprietor there as well. They returned to the Napping Gnome, and Mint then took some private time to send, not send a message actually, to receive a sending message from a Lieutenant Mistweaver, where she gets some news of something big that's happening in the Empire and to keep her ears open for news. She returns a message about telling a little bit about her allies, about Malika, who she met at the Shadow Forest, and then also some more information about the Shadow Forest as a threat. Talon and Gildy are at the Clipped Card looking for Morgan. They speak a little bit with the greeter there, who doesn't really know Morgan, but tells them that a lot of people have been looking for Morgan. So they stick around, hoping that Morgan might show up. Jacob heads to the same location, hoping to do some gambling, but he's more into dice games, which are the second level, so he doesn't really run past Gildy and Talon. Does a few games, and then as he's talking about what he does as an artificer, one of the other people at the table expresses an interest in him as an artificer, and together they leave the establishment, and hopefully Jacob can drum up some more business. However, he quickly finds out there was a bit of a ruse, and the person gets them back to their boarding house and pulls a gun on them as Jacob realizes that he's been ambushed. Leon, still at the Minstrel's Muse, has their visitor to the room. This is the enigmatic Misty, who agrees to find Leon's bag of holding for half of the monetary sum that might be within it. Leon agrees and Misty leaves, although Leon starts perhaps having some second thoughts about this. When Leon leaves their room, they find there is a halfling out in the hallway who says that he found a bag of holding after stealing it from a half-elf who took all of the coin out of it. So Leon gets their bag of holding back, and as the halfling leave, Leon mentions that they could potentially offer some wizarding services as recompense. This gets the halfling's attention, who says that they're quite in need of a way out of town. And Leon mentions that perhaps the halfling could hide in the bag of holding while Leon takes them from the city. However, the halfling also wants to take their half-orc friend with them, and this could be a bit of a problem, so Leon's going to see if they can come up with something. The halfling leaves and will return around midnight, hopefully with Leon's coin at that point. Leon goes down to the common room of the Minstrel's Muse, sees Jacob's sister arrive and start to play. Also sees a strange group arrive with an arrogant elf and a scary-looking half-dragon. Tor is just sort of about to go to bed and dozes off, has a dream of a dark, fey woman who seems vaguely familiar and sort of mentions that it's been a long time since they've seen each other, and also gives a warning that some of Torok's friends might be in danger and perhaps he should go help them. He wakes up and suddenly his child's stuffy on his belt seems to indicate where he needs to go, and he grabs Mint and they head out. Talon and Gildy at the clipped card haven't seen anything for a while, so they split up and go their separate ways. Talon goes to see a friend, Carl the Mimic, who's currently a barrel in an alley, just keeping an eye out. Carl says that he's been all sorts of places around the alleys around the city, hearing about Morgan, but hasn't seen Morgan, and highly suspects that Morgan might be in the inner city. Also mentions that he knows of a friend of Morgan's, Clausdock, who is a master tunneler and maybe may have a way for Morgan to have gotten into the inner city. And Clausdock, if Talon was looking for them, could probably be found at the Syndicate base. Jacob finds himself in a room with 6 others, all in sort of Moorish Empire military garb. A varied group of people, and he, as soon as the leader starts talking, this is the one he came with. Now that the leader's behind him, he gets this flash of a memory where he's at the temple ruins where he regained his memory. But cowering in fear, it's dark out, and the leader's voice comes across, again, sort of from behind him as he's sort of hidden down somewhere. And that voice is speaking with a voice that Jacob believes to be his mentor, Zenfal. They argue, and then comes to combat and gunfire, and that's when Jacob wakes up. Jacob tries to make some small talk and otherwise sort of distract them, but they're sort of pretty dedicated to what they're doing. They're going to grab his cart and head out of town tomorrow morning, and hopefully he'll come willingly. They're specifically looking for artificers to help for the Empire. He realizes that sort of there's the leader, a cleric, a wizard, a couple of brutes, and sort of some scout as well. Tor's stuffy leads him through the city, but sort of is a little tossed up one point, so they actually go to get Leon and then continue on, at which point, once they're in the Woodside Alley, they run into Gildy, very fortunately, and Mint thinks she sees Talon down the way, so she activates her boots of speed to run and go get him. And once they're all together, Gildy mentions that, they were looking for her child, and Leon seems to click into something and asks if the child's name is Morgan, and everyone's a little bit surprised at that, and Leon tells them that Morgan is at the Minstrel's Muse, or will be that soon, around midnight, and perhaps they can head there after helping Jacob. Tor Stuffy leads them to the location where Jacob is kept, sort of a long, low building, and they start to scout around. Mint, unfortunately, is a little too obvious in trying to see in one of the windows, and not only warns the people inside, but also gets then the attention of Jacob as well, who's inside. Talon is a little stealthier, gets a better view of who's inside and what's going on, but then sneaks off on his own to do some more reconnaissance. Jacob tries to do some distraction as some artificer stuff, but is noticed and stopped by the sort of person who's keeping a very close eye on him. Leon uses prestidigitation to put an arcane mark on the inside of the door to hopefully distract those inside, but they seem to quickly identify it as not an actual magical symbol, and they're now prepared for a siege. They've moved some of the beds and furniture around to sort of get things ready for this. Talon peeks in the far end door and sees this set up as well as the rune, and that's where we left it. So if you want to find out what happens next, you'll have to catch us on our next episode, and we'll see you next time on the next level.